Yo, what's up? We out here. Another episode of the doctoral vlogs. Year 3, day 2. Day 2? No, this is from day 3. That was from today. And a real important question that brought up a lot of thoughts in my mind. And that question is this: is your church dying? Is your community dying? It's a deep question, but I'm gonna get into some of the things that prompted the question and some of the answers and other things that came to my mind when we were discussing this in class. So the bottom line is this: people support what they help create. People support what they help create. And the quote that kind of launched this whole discussion in class, Greg Ogden, I haven't read the book, but the quote is there, and it's a recommendation from the professor to get. I will be getting this book, Transforming Discipleship. And here's the quote: "Ministry is like a football game with 22 people on the field in desperate need of rest and 50,000 people in the stands in desperate need of exercise." That's on page 25 of Greg Oden's book, Transforming Discipleship. And just think of that mental picture for a second, right? Yeah, it might be fun watching the game, but you see the people down there running and exhausted and so on. And then you look at a bunch of the fans who may or may not be overweight or whatever, judgment-free zone. I'm just saying it's the illustration that he used. And it's clear that some of these people might need a little bit more exercise. But what's the point? The point is ministry being like that, when you have leaders in churches who have so many different spectators seeing what they're doing, and they might need to get involved a little bit more in the actual ministry, but it's relegated to a few who kind of gatekeep and are those who are designated to do the ministry. That's when churches die. That's when communities die. Immediately after hearing this quote, I had to raise my hand to talk about something that I've talked with a number of my buddies about over the years, because I'm here at Andrews right now, and I went to Southern Adventist University for my undergrad. Now, no shade, I'm just calling it like I see it, okay? That's your disclaimer. The community at Southern, people have different views and different perspectives on this. A lot of my friends have different views and different perspectives on this. But one thing that I can say is that it was the first place that I had been to, elementary school, high school, university level. This was the first place that I had been to where it felt like it was okay really getting to know people of so many different ethnic backgrounds and cultures and with different interests. Growing up in Virginia, there just weren't that great of a diversity of people, to be honest. So I wasn't as exposed to it, but it surprised me how exposed I was to so many different types of people, different kinds of people with different interests at Southern, and how easy it was to connect with them. But I think there was a big reason why. The intramural program. Southern's intramural program, I think by far is peak in terms of intramural like production, the number of students that you have participating, the fact that most of the people who might show up to watch a game will probably have a game the same night. So the culture is very much one where everyone is involved. Everyone is contributing to the competition and the experience, the sport experience, regardless of what the sport is. I remember times where we would go out and play in our C-League soccer games and do whatever. We played B-League one year, but there were always people out there to watch. And a lot of the people watching were people that we'd end up playing against later. So they're scouting us. We show up to other games to scout them. We play against each other. We make friendships, whatever. We know people because we're starting to see them in more places than just randomly on campus. It's like there's connection there. And so if you made a good play in softball, if you made a great play in soccer, you might be walking on the promenade a little bit later and it prompts conversations because you've seen these people doing other things and you're engaging with so many more. And we had a convocation one time where it was like open forum and the students could ask the president whatever they wanted to. He was fielding the questions. And the only question I remember being asked at that was, how come Southern didn't have any public competing teams, like a basketball team or a soccer team or volleyball or anything like that? And Dr. Beats, who was the president at the time, his response was similar to this. And I need to check and see when this book was written because I almost wonder if that's where he got it. But he said he would much rather have 1,000 people playing the game and 10 watching than 10 people playing the game and 1,000 watching. That's verbatim what he said. I remember that. It's like seared into my memory. And again, it's just like this. He was talking about sport, but this quote is talking about ministry. But again, what's the point? Community was built and it was alive and vibrant because so many more people were involved with it. Now, by contrast, like I said, I'm up at Andrews here now. And the difference, one of the big differences initially that we have up at Andrews is we have a basketball team that plays other public schools and other Christian schools in the area. We have a soccer team that does the same. We have a volleyball team that does the same. So we do have the aspect of the few who play while the majority watch. And it's good for those who are involved with it, for sure. However, I do think it comes at a cost to the social experience at Andrews. Because more often than not, you have the few who are there playing, and they're the ones, because it's the team, they're the ones who are the best, and they're the best. And everyone else is just watching. You're not going to compete with those guys because they're the best. But here's the thing. On the flip side, when it comes to the intramural programs, you don't have as many people show up to participate. And it becomes very difficult for the intramural director to put on a program where it's vibrant and alive because you have one or two teams that want to play. And so much so, there's so little participation from the student body, I think, kind of driven from the presence of the teams that compete at the other universities. There's such little participation rates that it becomes very difficult to have this connection with that. So what does it do? If you have less people connecting here in an area like sports where it's very easy for people to connect, that translates out to the social experience at the school. And you can ask almost anyone. It's very hard to break into different established groups here at the school. I didn't have that issue when I was at Southern. It didn't matter if it was people from South America, people from the Middle East, people from the Far East. Didn't matter if it was people from Europe. Didn't matter if it was people from Africa. It didn't matter. I was able to connect with anybody there, in large part, I do believe this, because of the intramural structure and what that did for the social aspect at the school. And here, like I said, ask anybody who's a student here. It was an experience for me. I got lucky because I knew people who were here. But I've heard the stories from people who come in not knowing anyone, how difficult it is to break into a group if you ever do. There's very few that participate. The majority are spectating, and it ends up hurting the product. The main question, I bring it back to your memory, is your church dead? Is your community dead? And if it is, what does that imply for who's gatekeeping the ministry and who's spectating it? Because if you can have more people participating than spectating, I can guarantee you that your spiritual community will be alive and vibrant, that your church will be alive and vibrant and growing. It's a game changer, but it's hard because ministers and people with the authority, they want to gatekeep and be the only ones who do it. but we have to be open to letting others into the mix. You have to open up. Maybe there's an A league, a B league, and a C league, so that you get people at different levels who are able to participate. You got to figure it out. But the proof is in the pudding, right? So a very interesting thought right there. And one other point, checking my notes here. I started with this statement. So this is I forget what the term is, but you start with the thing in the beginning and you come back to it at the end, and it's like it's mirrored. Oh my goodness. It's from Hebrew and Greek. I don't remember. That's going to bug me. But the initial statement that I said was people support what they create. And if you have more people that are able to participate in the creation of a school community, a spiritual community, now you have people who have bought in and people who are willing to support. Something that I see every time I go down to Southern, my family's in Tennessee, so I go down there often. There's always something going on campus. There's always a new building. There's always there's new housing going up, new whatever. They're always doing something. And it's been like that since I was there as a student. Well, why is that? A lot of these buildings were paid for through donations. People support what they help to create. So if there's more resource and funding there to do those types of things coming from donations, it tells you something about the community. It tells you about what people felt they were able to create and participate in while they were there. And it tells you why they're contributing back to it, even though they're gone. Now, if I look at a school like Andrews and I'm just keeping it real, man. I worked as a dean. I'm rocking my shirt right now from one of the programs I helped put on. I worked as a dean there, and I worked with people who had dreams and visions of improving the buildings so that we could make a better experience for the student body. And yet, every time that a question would come up of even the smallest thing that we wanted to do to improve the dorm and the living space, well, we don't have the finances for it. We're having to cut budgets every year. People support what they help to create. But all of this stuff is circular, right? Because if the experience that people had there isn't something that they felt they created and they just felt like they were present for, when they leave, they're not looking to give back. So again, these are real illustrations. Well, they're real examples. It's not even an illustration. This is actually happening right now. And I'm not saying this to dog anybody or to praise anybody. I'm just saying it to make the point. If you're in ministry or whatever it is that you're doing and you feel like it's dying, people support what they help to create. So are you creating opportunities for other people to join you in the creation process, or are you gatekeeping the thing it is that you're trying to share? Because one of those will end up in growth and the other one will end up going nowhere. It's up to you to decide what you're going to do. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know your perspective. If you happen to go to either one of these schools, or if you went to a different school, what do you see happening in terms of donations and the campus experience? What contributed to a good experience, a positive experience, or a negative one? And how do you look back? Would you support the schools that you went to coming up? Let me know what you think down below, and we'll get to another doctoral vlog later. All right. See you in the next one. Peace.